I am ashamed of Britain because of the Windrush scandal. No question about it.
I hadn't realised that so many British people had left Britain after the war, that in fact Britain turned to the Caribbean because of our other people actually becoming immigrants themselves and going abroad.
It's a dirty little secret.
Well, is it? Is that how you see it? I mean, I was amazed that I didn't know.
I do see it that way because what I think most people believe they know is that there were shortages of manpower because of the war.
I knew that,
so you had
but I didn't know why.
Exactly, war brides, and some people might have been killed.
Yeah,
guys who would have been on building sites and whatever, reconstructed Britain, they were killed in Germany or wherever. Okay. Does that take out enough people of the population to cause a serious manpower shortage? No. What causes the manpower shortage is 2 million Brits going to Canada or Australia or New Zealand, and you cannot blame them. That's one thing I hope I get across in the book, that they did not want to hang around Russian book Britain. Who would? You know, Coventry was bombed to bits. The East End was completely flattened. You know, there was starvation, there was hunger. It was difficult. Yes, Britain won the war, but really, it was on its knees. Owed America a whole ton of money that through the Lend-Lease program. That it was Tony Blair who was the prime minister who paid that off. So that's how poor and knackered and broken Britain was. And it was Churchill who said, "Don't leave. We need you guys. We don't want you to become 10-pound bombs," although they didn't exist then. But he was making the point that you need to stay behind and rebuild the country. But Britain was knackered, and those people were knackered, and so they left. So there was a shortage. But the key thing here is that the Nationality Act, under that, making everyone in the empire citizens, equal citizens, the British didn't think black people would come. They thought it would be Aussies and Canadians and Kiwis who would come. And then when it turned out the Empire Windrush was full of black people, 11 Labour MPs had a late night meeting with Clement Attlee to try to turn the ship around, because they were convinced that Britain's character would change. And it has. It's become multicultural Britain as a result. And I think that's a good change, but some people don't agree.
Well, the fact that your parents were reluctant to acknowledge or didn't feel able to acknowledge the racism they'd been made to put up with, how did they feel about you being really quite upfront about your experience of it?
They understand it. They understand why I felt it was important to put that in, because there is this understanding, I think, or belief among some people. And in fact, it's been made clear to me in one interview that I've already done, that people might be shocked that my family have been caught up in the Windrush scandal.
That was your half-brothers?
That was my two half-brothers, Lionel and Peter. That, you know, Clive Myrie, for some reason, he's caught up in this. Like it's something that only happens to poor people or people who aren't famous or people who haven't achieved anything, or, do you know what I mean? And I wanted to get across that actually racism happens to everybody. Trevor McDonald's family, if they came over in 1948 under that act, and in the years after 48, his folks would have been in the same situation. Lenny Henry, Moira Stewart, I don't know, name a black person. If they came over under the 48 Act, they could have been caught up in the Windrush scandal. And that was the point. And I wanted to get that across, and also get across the fact that, yeah, I might have achieved a few things in life, but that does not stop people using the N-word in correspondence and emails and tweets and whatever. Does not stop it at all.
Let's just sort of talk a little bit about that, because that shouldn't be happening. And I suppose I might have thought that since you started talking about it in public, that it might have stopped, but it still hasn't.
But that's interesting why you think that might have happened.
Maybe because I'm a lily-livered pinko who hopes that people will reform or just not behave in that way.
No, you can't legislate for individuals. What you can do is try to get rid of the structural disadvantages and the structural inbuilt racism that exists. And I think as a society, Britain is on its way to trying to sort of deal with a lot of that, no question. But individuals, yeah, there's always going to be a loon out there. Always going to, for whatever reason. You cannot legislate for someone feeling a certain way about another individual. And, you know, I don't know how it's education is what's going to help people like that. But those people used to wind me up. Now I just have unbridled pity because they're just sad losers.
Do you reply
and that's how
to
I
people?
feel. I said do sometimes, yeah. I do
What
sometimes.
Do you say?
So one guy got in touch. I did a profile. There was a profile of me in the Times, and he got in touch and he said, my country has changed and it's disgraceful. I sort of walk around parts of London and it's just horrible. And I see these black people out smoking dope, and and people like you should never have been allowed in here. Never have been allowed in. First of all, I was born here, and I made that clear to this
Gentleman.
chap. I was told I couldn't swear on air. I was told I couldn't swear, so I made that clear, and the implication was always from some of these people that you were given the opportunity. You've been given everything that you have. Not that you earned, not that I earned it, not that I worked my balls off for the last 30 years as a journalist, on occasion getting shot at or whatever. No, none of that. No, you've been given everything and you're turning against this country. How can you say you're ashamed of Britain because of the Windrush scandal? I am ashamed of Britain because of the Windrush scandal. No question about it. And I made that clear to him. And I also spelt out the fine print within the 1948 Nationality Act that meant that we were all citizens. And as a result, we didn't just wander over here. We were invited over here to help rebuild this country. And I made the point that I made to you, Jane, that 2 million white Britons left. So if we hadn't come over, or my folks had not come over, Coventry wouldn't have been rebuilt. The NHS would be short of staff, as it is now. British Rail wouldn't be running, etc., etc., etc. And then I said, thank you very much, goodbye.